My name's Alex, I'm 34, and last month I finally got the call I've been chasing for almost a decade. 8 years of 12-hour days, skipped birthdays, and every "you're still working" their dinner conversation finally paid off. The email came at 9:13 a.m. on a rainy Monday, and I had to read it 4 times before it sank in. I got it. The promotion. The position I'd aimed for since my first underpaid internship. The one that barely paid for boxed noodles and shared rent. Director of Strategic Development at one of the top firms in my city. Double the salary. My own office. A team under me. And for once, no one could pretend they hadn't noticed. So I did something I never do. I made plans to celebrate. I booked a private table at one of those rooftop restaurants downtown. 10 seats, skyline view, personalized menu, everything. The kind of place you only go to when something really matters. And this did. I sent the invites to my immediate family, my parents, my brother Tyler and his wife, 2 aunts, a couple cousins, even my godmother. I told them all, no gifts, just bring yourselves. I just want to celebrate with the people who matter. They all said they'd come. Every single one. I arrived a little early. Wore the suit that had hung in my closet with the tag still on. I ordered a glass of wine, picked at the appetizers, and kept checking my phone. It was 7:05, then 7:30, then 8:10. I called my mom straight to voicemail. Tyler texted, running late, at 7:42. I held out hope. Maybe they were stuck in traffic. Maybe they were trying to surprise me. At 8:34 p.m., the waiter came back for the 3rd time, politely asking if I'd like to start serving the entrees. I looked around the empty table. 10 seats, 10 name cards, 10 no-shows. Box it all up, I muttered. He nodded, didn't ask questions, and walked away. I didn't cry. Not there. Not then. I just stared out at the skyline I couldn't even enjoy anymore and kept sipping my wine, trying not to think about how pathetic I looked to everyone else in that room. Eventually, I paid the $2,050 bill, tip included. I gave the boxed food to the valet and drove home in silence. That's when I saw the post. My Aunt Jean, who'd said she was so excited to see me, had posted a photo of my brother on Facebook, Tyler, my golden boy younger brother, standing in front of a backlit sign that read, "Casting Today, Season 10. His arms were outstretched, shirt half-buttoned, faked and so orange it could have triggered an Amber Alert. The caption read, "So proud of our star. He's going places. Hashtag TV life, hashtag family support." The comments were even worse. My mom had posted, "Knew it from the start, our boy's gonna be famous." My dad added a gif of a confetti cannon. Even my cousin Lindsay, who I'd lent $400 to 2 months ago, had left a heart emoji. No one had even acknowledged my night. Not a text, not a call, not even a "sorry we missed it." It was like I didn't exist. Or worse, like I'd never mattered in the first place. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying every moment I'd bent over backward for this family. The birthdays I'd paid for. The Christmas where I bought all the gifts because Mom wasn't feeling it. The 3 years I'd covered my parents' mortgage when Dad was laid off and too proud to ask the bank for help. I did all that without a word. Quiet support. Because that's who I thought I was to them. Reliable, loyal, someone they'd be proud of. But watching Tyler beam in front of a poster for a reality show he probably won't even get past the first round of, and seeing everyone fawn over him like he cured cancer, something broke in me. A bitter, electric anger surged in my chest. Not jealousy, not even sadness. Just this hollow realization that I was only useful to them when I stayed silent and signed checks. So I stopped being useful. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank dashboard. I had it all bookmarked. Logins for the shared account I used to pay the mortgage, the auto payment schedules, the emergency fund I'd quietly topped off each month. I stared at the pause payments button for a long time before clicking it. Then I called the bank. I'd like to remove myself from the joint mortgage agreement. There was a pause on the line. "Are you sure, sir? You've been the primary." "Very sure." By 2:17 a.m., the paperwork was initiated. Then I drove to their house, the one I'd quietly kept afloat for 3 years. I didn't knock. I didn't need to see their faces. I just taped a folded note to the door. Nothing dramatic. No speech. Just a single line, scrawled in thick Sharpie. Didn't realize stupidity was a billable skill, good luck. I took a photo of it, just to remember how it looked. By the time I woke up the next morning, I had 86 missed calls. My mom, my dad, Tyler, even Aunt Jean. The voicemails ranged from confused to angry to desperate. One from Tyler was just static and breathing before he hissed, "What did you do?" but I didn't respond. Not yet. I wasn't done watching it all unravel. That weekend, something else happened. Something I didn't expect, and it's what really made me realize just how deep the rot went. The first sign of chaos came through a group chat I ignored. I only noticed it because my phone lit up with a barrage of messages, all timestamped between 6:03 and 6:21 a.m. Dad texted, "Alex, what's going on with the house?" Mom texted, "Your father said the payment bounced. Did you forget?" Tyler texted, "Dude, call me. I mean it." Aunt Jean texted, "You're being petty. This isn't who you are." Lindsay texted, "I heard from Tyler. This is extreme. Be an adult." I didn't reply. I just scrolled and let their words pile up like snowflakes before an avalanche. I think that's what made them panic more than anything, the silence. They were used to me being reasonable. Used to me picking up the phone, smoothing things over, keeping the family stitched together like human duct tape. That Friday, I got a text from my mom that finally showed their hand. "Mom, bank is sending letters. You were on the mortgage too. If this house goes under, it's on you." That one made me laugh out loud. They'd forgotten something important. When I agreed to help them with the mortgage 3 years ago, I refinanced the property in my name, only my name. Dad had maxed out his credit, and Mom's name had been tied to a medical default. The bank wouldn't lend to them without a cosigner. But with me? With my spotless credit and steady income? They handed me the keys with a smile. So no, the mortgage wasn't their burden. The house was. Which meant when I canceled the payments, I wasn't abandoning them. I was just deciding I no longer wanted to pay for a place I didn't live in, wasn't welcome in, and hadn't even been invited to for Thanksgiving last year. And legally, I could sell it, or rent it, or torch the deed and let it sit empty for all I cared. I didn't reply to Mom's message. Instead, I logged into the property management site and listed the house for a private rental showing. 3 inquiries came in within 2 days. One of them from a nurse relocating to our city. I scheduled a walkthrough for Tuesday. That weekend, I went to clear out any of my documents from the house. I waited until I knew they'd all be gone. Tyler had posted a story from a bar, Dad was golfing with his high school buddy, and Mom was tagging herself in a local spa. I pulled into the driveway like a ghost returning to a former life. It felt weird being back. The yard was overgrown. A rusted wind chime tapped against the porch railing like it had something to say. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. It still smelled like Dad's cologne. Still had the framed photos of Tyler at graduation, Tyler at football camp, Tyler holding a participation trophy at age 9. I scanned the walls, counted maybe 2 photos of me, both group shots where I'd been cropped awkwardly to the side. I went upstairs to retrieve the documents I kept in a filing cabinet in the guest room closet. The room that used to be mine before I moved out for college and never really came back. As I opened the drawer, I noticed something odd. The top folder was missing. The one labeled Home Ownership Agreement. I checked twice. Nothing. I felt my stomach not with fear, but with a slow, heavy dread. Then I heard a sound from downstairs. Keys jingling. The front door opened. I froze. I wasn't supposed to be here while they were home. That had been the whole point. But there was Tyler's voice, loud and annoyed. "It's just one box, Mom. You said it was in the closet." Mom replied, sharp and breathless, "Well, if you took it already, we're done. That folder's our only leverage." They were coming up the stairs. I didn't have time to sneak out. So I did the next best thing. I stepped into the linen closet across the hallway and gently pulled the door shut behind me. I stood there in the dark, heart pounding, barely daring to breathe. I heard the guest room door creak open. Papers shuffled. "Gone," Mom hissed. "He already came. He took it." "No way. He probably just moved it." "Then help me look, Tyler. If he goes to the bank without that folder, we'll be homeless by June." Tyler muttered something too low to hear, and then there was silence for a beat. Then, Mom's voice again, low and venomous. "Maybe we guilt him. That always worked before." Tyler gave a dry laugh. "You mean like when I sprained my knee before his graduation? He still drove me to prom that night." "Exactly," she said. "We just need to remind him how much we've done for him. Make him feel like the bad guy." That's when I knew. They weren't just ungrateful. They were calculating. Every guilt trip. We're so proud of Tyler. Every time I got a leftover gift card while my brother unwrapped a MacBook. It wasn't just passive neglect. It was strategic. They knew I was loyal. They knew I'd bend. And they'd been using that against me for years. I stepped out of the closet so fast Tyler nearly dropped the lamp he was pretending to straighten. Mom gasped. "Alex, what are you?" I held up my phone. I'd recorded everything. They went pale. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't say a word. I just smiled, pocketed my phone, walked to the cabinet, pulled out the missing folder, which I'd actually tucked under the mattress earlier, just in case, and headed down the stairs. Alex, wait. Let's talk about this. Tyler followed me halfway to the front door. But I was done talking. I opened the door, stepped into the sunlight, and let it close behind me. Back in my car, I pulled up the real estate agent's number and hit call. It was time to finish what I started. The next few days passed in a strange sort of calm. I thought I'd feel nervous or conflicted after confronting them like that, but instead, I felt lighter, like a piano had been lifted off my back and I could finally stand straight for the first time in years. But calm on my end didn't mean silence on theirs. The messages turned from passive-aggressive to flat-out desperate. Mom texted, "We need to talk. Please. Face to face. This is getting out of hand." Dad texted, "Son, we can fix this. We're family." Tyler texted, "You think you're better than everyone? Good luck explaining this to Grandma." Lindsay texted, "You're seriously selling their house? What is wrong with you?" I didn't reply to any of them. Not out of spite. I was simply done giving oxygen to people who only remembered I existed when they needed something. For once in my life, I wasn't explaining myself or apologizing or playing the peacekeeper. I focused on what mattered now, closing the deal. The realtor, Melanie, was a sharp woman in her early 50s who had sold houses through 3 recessions and 2 divorces of her own. So when I explained the situation, she just nodded and said, "Oh, honey, you'd be shocked how often it's the nice one who gets burned." She handled the listing with brutal efficiency. Paperwork was filed, staging was scheduled, and she even had a buyer lined up, a newlywed couple looking for their first home. They were sweet, friendly, normal. I met them during the second walkthrough. The wife, Emily, was especially curious about the layout and kept asking if the current tenants were moving out soon. "They've been notified," I said flatly. Technically, I hadn't served formal eviction notices yet, but legally, they were squatters now. The house was in my name. They didn't pay rent. No contract. No rights. Just entitlement wrapped in family ties. Still, Melanie said to play it smart and buy the book. So I drafted a 30-day notice to vacate and sent it via certified mail. I knew exactly when they received it because 2 things happened within an hour of delivery. First, I got a voicemail from my dad. His voice was tight, forced calm, the way it always got right before he exploded. "Alex, this isn't funny anymore. This is our home. Your mother's home. What you're doing, it's not just cold. It's betrayal." And second, my Aunt Jean posted a cryptic Bible verse on Facebook about the son who turns his back on his parents reaping what he sows. Classic. But nothing prepared me for what they did next. They showed up at my condo. I was coming home from a gym session, still sweaty, earbuds in, wearing an old college hoodie, when I saw them standing in the hallway outside my door. Tyler, arms crossed like he was at a job interview. Mom, wringing her hands. Dad, leaning against the wall like it was his own house. "Alex," Mom said, stepping forward. "Please, can we talk inside?" "No," I said flatly. "Don't be dramatic," Dad snapped. "This is family business. We're not going to do this in a hallway." "You weren't too worried about family business when you ditched my promotion dinner to cheer Tyler on for a TV audition." Tyler scoffed. "Dude, it was just an audition." "No," I said slowly. "It was your moment. And somehow, it became their moment too." Mom looked hurt. "We didn't mean to." "You did. You always do. And I let you. For years." She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. "You don't get to gaslight me anymore. I know exactly what's going on. I overheard everything. The guilt trips. The manipulation. The plan to twist this back on me." Dad straightened up. "We were scared, okay? You can't just throw us out like garbage." "I'm not throwing you out. I'm stopping the unpaid arrangement you all pretended wasn't happening. You want to stay? Buy the house from me. Pay market price." Tyler laughed. "You serious?" "Dead serious. We raised you," Mom said, voice cracking. "We gave you everything." "No," I said quietly. "You gave Tyler everything. I earned mine. And now I'm keeping it." I stepped around them, unlocked my door, and shut it behind me before they could say anything else. They didn't knock. But that night, I got a single text from Tyler. Tyler texted, "Just remember who visited you in the hospital when you broke your arm in 4th grade. Wasn't me. Was Mom. Think about that. It was such a bizarre, specific guilt trip that I almost laughed. But it made one thing clear. They weren't going down without a fight. A week later, Melanie called. Hey, we've got a problem. The buyers had driven by the house again, just to get a feel for the neighborhood. And apparently, my parents had draped a massive banner across the porch. Bright red letters on white fabric. This house was stolen from US by our own son. And just below it, a smaller sign in Sharpie. Buyer beware. Property is under dispute. Melanie was furious. That's slander. It's not even true. We can file for a cease and desist. But I wasn't surprised. This was them in full desperation mode. They'd never been held accountable before, never been told no. Now that the money was drying up and the consequences were real, they were throwing tantrums like toddlers denied dessert. The buyers didn't walk away, at least, not yet. But they were nervous now, asking questions, wanting to know if this would turn into some drawn-out legal fight. It wouldn't. I was sure of that, because I was about to play my ace. I didn't sleep much that night. It wasn't anxiety keeping me up. It was clarity. I stared at the ceiling in the dark and thought about everything. The missed birthdays. The emotional blackmail. The way they'd spent years chipping away at my self-worth with every subtle snub. Every time they dismissed my career like it was just computers. Every fake, were so proud that always seemed to be followed by a new request for help. And it was always help with bills. Help with tuition. Help with rent. But never help for me. Not once had they asked how I was doing. Not once had anyone offered to pay me back, or even thank me beyond a stiff hug and a vague promise to repay me when things calmed down. It was never about gratitude. It was always about access. To my time. To my money. To me. And now they were panicking because, for the first time ever, I'd locked the vault. I got out of bed, made a pot of coffee, and pulled out the folder they'd tried to steal. The home ownership agreement. Technically informal. A document we drafted years ago when I agreed to help refinance the house. It listed expectations, roles, and the understanding that I'd retain ownership until they could take it back. It wasn't notarized, but it was signed. By all of them. Even Tyler. That morning, I went to my lawyer. Miriam had represented me in a contract dispute years ago, and she remembered me instantly. Ready to go nuclear? She said, flipping through the folder. Not quite nuclear, I said. But I want the threat visible on the table. She smirked. We can do that. That same week, she sent a formal letter of intent to sell the house, with documentation proving I was the sole legal owner. Included was a polite but firm warning that any further public defamation, banners, online posts, flyers, would be met with legal action. She made it clear we had every intention to pursue damages if the buyers backed out due to harassment. The letter was delivered by courier. They received it Thursday at 2:14 p.m. By 2:43 p.m., I got a frantic voicemail from Mom. Alex, please, we didn't mean for this to go so far. We were just upset. We can take the banner down. We'll apologize to the buyers. Just, please don't sue us. No mention of being sorry for skipping my dinner. No regret for trying to guilt me. Just desperation. Self-preservation. Still, I waited. I wanted more than a reaction. I wanted a change. That weekend, the buyers came for a final walkthrough. The house was clean. Banner gone. Even the lawn had been trimmed. Mom was there, surprisingly quiet. She nodded to me, but her eyes looked like they hadn't seen sleep in days. Tyler didn't speak. Just stared out the window while the couple explored the living room. His shoulders were hunched. His tan had faded. Reality was setting in. The walkthrough went smoothly. The couple made their offer official. We accepted. The closing date was set for 3 weeks later. At that point, my parents had two options: vacate quietly or try to drag it into court. They picked the former. Miriam had sent one final document, a cash relocation incentive if they left the property in good condition, keys surrendered on time. Not a bribe, just enough to keep things civil. They signed. Packing took 2 weeks. I didn't help. I didn't even visit. I let Melanie handle the final inspection. She called afterward and said, honestly, I think they were too embarrassed to see you again. Fine by me. On the day of closing, I met the buyers at the title office. They handed me a check. I signed the deed transfer. Just like that, the house was no longer mine, and no longer theirs, either. I walked outside into the sun and just stood there. It was over. A few days later, I got a single letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. My mom. It read, Alex, we're heartbroken. Not because of the house, but because we don't know who you are anymore. This version of you is cold, distant, cruel. We know you think we used you. Maybe we did, but we're still your family. That has to count for something. We hope you'll come around someday. Love, Mom and Dad. I didn't reply. Because here's what I realized. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. And once respect is gone, the title means nothing. I donated the letter to the recycling bin and never looked back. In the weeks that followed, something strange happened. My world got quieter, freer. I didn't have to brace for incoming guilt texts or late-night Venmo requests. I had room, mental, emotional, even physical, to live my own life. I took a trip to Norway. A solo vacation I'd always dreamed of but never had time for. I sat on a cliffside overlooking the fjords and thought, this is what peace feels like. No obligations. No keeping the emotional books balanced. Just me, existing on my own terms. A few months later, I got a LinkedIn message from someone I barely knew, an old classmate. She said, I saw what happened. Your brother's reality show tanked. Just wanted to say, you're kind of my hero. That was badass. I chuckled, closed the message, and shut my laptop. Because that was the final twist, wasn't it? Tyler's big audition? He didn't even make the first cut. They told him he didn't have the look. No charisma. No story. Meanwhile, I was quietly living mine. No cameras. No applause. Just freedom. And honestly, that was the best revenge of all.